and then some helpful hints.
Sounds good. Well, I say let's go ahead and get started. We are going to record and send this back out. I know Wednesdays can be a little tough sometimes for getting agents on, but today we have Sherane on with Placer Title. She did a webinar with us maybe about 2 months ago, and we have her back, and she's going to talk about wire fraud today. I'm sure I like to do these at least a couple times a year. Seems like there's always some new things going on with wire fraud and new ways that these guys are trying to get our money, I guess. So with that, I guess I'll let you go ahead and take it over and let us know what you're seeing these days.
Okay, so yeah, I'm still seeing the attachment. I'm not seeing anybody, so forgive me. You might be able to see me, but I can't see you. So basically, I wanted to talk a little bit more about wire fraud today because I have had personally some recent experiences. I mean, in the last few years, we keep hearing about wire fraud and all these warnings and trying to make people aware of it. But, here in Fresno, we feel like, oh, that's only going to happen in LA or San Francisco. That doesn't ever happen in Fresno. Or that would never happen to me. Recently, I had an experience where a lender had sent over a CD for us to balance. And we had sent back our closing statement with the exact figure to balance with the lender. And a fraudster had taken that figure and one of my assistants, her signature line, and had emailed the borrower and told the borrower to send in their funds as soon as possible to avoid any delays in closing. So the borrower then took the money and wired $32,000 to this account. It was a Wells Fargo account, and the wire instructions were alarming to me after I reviewed what she had received, because it didn't have our letterhead. It didn't have, and basically it was somebody typed it out on a Word document. So basically, instantly, I jumped on the phone with our legal department because I got an email from the loan officer saying, hey, our borrower's been hit with wire fraud. She's wired this amount of money, blah, blah, blah. So I jump on the phone with our legal department, and the borrower called her bank and the Wells Fargo and the FBI. Wells Fargo, the FBI immediately shut down that account and said that there was some money in there. Our borrower was fortunate to get that money back. And we have yet to close, but we are getting ready to close. And so, $32,000 to some people is a lot of money, and it's that, could be their life savings, and they're trying to buy this house, and then all of a sudden it's just gone. After the investigation, our legal department investigated our emails. Come to find out, the lender was using a Gmail account, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with domain emails versus public emails, but a Gmail account is very easy to be hacked. I can attest for that because my ex-husband did some shady stuff and I actually hacked into his Gmail account. So they're very easy to hack a Gmail, Ymail, Yahoo. Those kind of accounts don't have the firewalls and the safety precautions that some of the brokers or lenders provide. What was crazy to me is this particular lender in the investigation, he's like, I don't understand. This is the second time this has happened to us in a week. Well, I went back and I reviewed everybody that was on that chain when we were balancing the closing statement. The processor, the loan officer, they all had Gmail accounts. So our legal department, of course, they contacted our IT. There was no breach in our firewalls or whatever. They came to the determination it wasn't on our end. So that led us to believe that it was, clearly the issue was the Gmail, which seemed crazy to me because this particular broker, they do real estate and they do loans, and they have a company email address available to all of their loan officers or processors with, their company name. It's a domain email. So you know how Wells Fargo, like Placer Title, we have placertitle.com, Wells Fargo's wellsfargo.com. Those are domain emails. Those are usually more protected than your public email addresses. So, I mean, that tells me right there, like, okay, you've been hit twice in a week. Clearly the issue is on your end. So what are we going to do about it? So we'll get to that in a minute. But this particular broker did offer domain emails, and why they weren't utilizing it, I don't know. And it was very uncomfortable for me because right after that happened, I have gone into their office and I have given a class on wire fraud because of that. Now, in this particular case, the buyer, for the initial EMD, we send out wiring instructions to our clients. Now, I've provided attachments that shows the warning notice that's on the front of our wiring instructions, as you see maybe see on the screen, because it's still on mine. Mm-hmm. We're very clear that, attached to this notice are our wire instructions. These are the only wire instructions you're going to receive from Placer. They will not change. Placer Title will not provide these again unless you or your agent specifically requests them. It says that if anyone sends you wire instructions that look different from these, to call us, confirm. Fraudsters are very clever now. I mean, this warning goes out on every one of our wire instructions. So automatically it's attached. So this particular buyer, she received this in the very beginning and she wired in her EMD. She was going through a lot. Apparently there was a death in the family, something else was going on. And so when she got the second email, she didn't really pay attention and she sent the second wire based on the fraudster's email. So, I mean, I think from a realtor standpoint, I mean, we've got an escrow realtor. I mean, we're doing our part to try to make sure people are aware, like, hey, this is it. These are the wire instructions you're going to get. We're not going to give you any more. I actually do give the buyer a second set of wire instructions, but I give it to them with their originals in their loan documents, right on top with the amount that they need to wire. So if your buyer is being told to wire funds to close prior to them signing their loan documents, then I would definitely question that. Does anybody have any questions so far?
There is one question. It says, is there wire fraud insurance out there?
That is a very good question. I do not believe so.
Yeah, it's not something I've heard of, but.
No, I do not believe so. I know in this case, we called Wells Fargo. It was Wells Fargo. They received a wire. Clearly, my attorneys made sure that now when a bank, and I'm going to explain this to how wires work. When we send out a wire, people tend to get upset with us because, like, if it's in their trust, and I know we've had the discussion about trusts and corporations and LLCs, but say their property is in their trust and it's Joe and Betty Smith, trustees of the Joe and Betty Smith Trust. If their bank doesn't have that trust on there, that wire will get rejected. Even though the bank account says Joe and Betty Smith, if it doesn't say Joe and Betty Smith, trustees of their trust, or the trust is not on that bank account, banks will usually reject that wire. So on the bank's end, when they get an incoming wire, they're supposed to cross-reference the name with the owner of that account. And I know for a fact, because I have wired funds multiple times where people have had it not in their trust, and the property was in the trust, and So now I specifically tell people, please make sure your trust is on your bank account. Well, they're like, well, it's not. Well, take your trust papers to your bank and add it. Because if I wire you the money and your trust isn't on there, there is a 99% chance it's going to get rejected. Why in this case? Because our attorneys did confirm with Wells Fargo that Placer Title is not on that account anywhere. And so they still deposited those funds. So that was kind of bad on their part. They didn't cross-reference the names and they should have. But our wires have to match exactly the way the name is on the account when it goes out. So if it's a husband and wife, we make the husband and wife both sign the wire instructions saying that it's okay for the money to go to that account. I also get your sellers will get very upset with us because they may change their mind and they want their proceeds wired. And so they'll ask us, they'll call in and they'll ask me or one of my assistants, hey, I don't want it to go to my Wells Fargo. I want it to go to my Bank of America, or I had it set up to my Bank of America. Now I decided I want it to go to my credit union. We can't take that information over the phone. We can't take it via email. They have to come back in and they have to sign new wire instructions in front of a notary. I had one gentleman not that long ago got very upset with me because he didn't have the time to do that. And I had to explain to him, like, anybody could call me and tell me they are you. How do I know you're not your son, your neighbor, somebody else that knows this transaction is, how do I know you're not the realtor? You know what I mean? Pretending to be you. Like, I can't see you unless you want to FaceTime me. I can't see you and I'm trying to protect your money. So we don't change wire instructions that sellers give us unless they come in and sign a new instruction in front of a notary. Those are good practices. I have a friend who had an independent escrow company down south, and she actually lost her company because, realtor, you're going to say, well, lenders get hacked, but we're not lenders, so we're okay. No, I had a friend down south who lost her independent escrow company because the escrow officer got an email from the realtor telling the realtor to wire the funds to a different account. The escrow officer, if she's still employed, did not have the seller come in and sign new wire instructions. She took the realtor's email and sent the wire. Well, the realtor's email had been hacked. So this person was, and they're clever. And these, I don't know if anybody has ever seen a fraudulent email, but from a fraudster, there's little differences. But if you're not trained to see those little differences, then they're very convincing. They're getting better and better at what they do. So even for realtors, it's kind of scary because, like, this escrow officer, number one, never should have taken the email from the realtor. She should have followed up with the seller. But number two, the realtor's email was hacked, and nevertheless, that email went out and the money was lost. Within hours, that money had gone overseas. They couldn't get the money back. The escrow company had to cover that wire to close that transaction. And because of that, it was over $1 million wire. She lost her business. She had to make good on that wire. So, and that was an outgoing wire. So that, yes, that we are responsible, for. That was a huge mistake on their part. So if your sellers question you, like, oh my God, this escrow company, they're being difficult, they want me to come back in and sign wire instructions, just back us up and let them know, hey, we're dealing with a lot of money. They're trying to protect your funds, and that's just the way it has to be. Because these people, they are getting more and more clever. Any other questions at this point?
I don't see any other ones in there. Not yet.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
Okay. The only thing I can say as far as the wires, call and confirm the wire instructions. If you're wiring money to somebody, call them and say, hey, can you verify your wire instructions with me? I have lenders, funders do it to us all day long. If we have a file that's funding, the funder will call me and say, I'm getting ready to fund this file. Can you confirm your wire instructions? And she'll read me the ABA number and the account number just to make sure it's going to the right place. There's nothing wrong with that, and most people are okay with that. Sometimes it's annoying when you're busy, but it's for the best. That way, everybody's money is protected in the transaction. I think the more you communicate with your escrow officer, your lender, the lender is never going to ask the borrower to wire money a month before escrow closes, because it could hold up a transaction. Usually, most of once the loan documents get here, we send them out for signing. We give the buyer the final dollar amount, and then they go to the bank and wire it from there. So I think communication is the key, obviously, and no matter what we do. And just being aware of that this is a real threat. They are hitting the smaller, I don't consider Fresno small, but they are hitting the smaller areas. Maybe they've tapped out LA and San Francisco, so now they're moving here. Who knows? But it was the Gmail accounts that were. So I did include this last page that gives you some tips on protecting your email if you are using a public email. Change your passwords. Like here at work, we're required to change our passwords every, I think it is 30 days. And definitely use something that you're going to know, but something that has special characters, capital letters, lowercase letters. This says change your email password every 90 days, but I believe because of the sensitivity of the information we use, they require us to do it every 30 days. Do not use the same password for your email account that you do for everything else. Do not reuse a previously used password. Enable to, and I'm not a computer techie person, so a lot of this stuff is actually over my head, but it says there's a multi-factor authentication for email accounts that you can set up. Also check your email settings for any auto forwards, because the way a lot of these fraudsters are doing it is they will hack into your email account, and in the background, they're putting an auto forward that you may or may not even know is there. And so you're getting your emails, but they are also getting your emails. So make sure to check your email settings to make sure you have no auto forwards in place. And if you do, obviously disable them immediately and change your password. Check your email settings for logins outside of your normal geographic area. So if you've got a login to your email from another country, obviously that's a red flag. Or if you've never been to Texas and somebody from Texas is logging into your email, that's a red flag. Yeah. So change your password, etc. And obviously never share your passwords with anybody else. Like my assistants don't even know my password. We all have our own separate logins, our own computers. We're not even allowed to share our passwords with our own team. So that is pretty much it. Just
good way for
wanted to
preventing. So what are some other, I guess, how often do you see attempts at wire fraud?
We have some pretty high firewalls clearly here. So we don't see them as often, but it was pretty alarming to me that one lender who was using the processor, the loan officer, they were using a Gmail. The fact that they told me they had been hit twice in a week, that's pretty alarming. That means they're the same loan officer has been hit twice, or the same loan company. I don't believe it was the same loan officer, but the same company was hit twice. I think that definitely wire fraud is on the rise. I think they're getting craftier. So again, that's why I'm out doing these classes, to make sure that not only are the lenders aware of it, the realtors are aware of it, because there are times that you guys are on those emails. I know lenders now, they're adding 20 people to an email about a file that's getting ready to close. So it'd be very easy to find one of those that's open to being hacked. So just set up as many safety precautions as you can for your own email.
Yeah, a little bit of hassle is probably worth it. We had
Absolutely
an attempt probably about 2 years ago where one of our agents had received a bogus email from me regarding the commission being paid. So they wanted, the email appeared to be from me saying, hey, can you have the commission wired to this account when it comes through, or when you close? And I don't ever ask for commissions to be wired. And so she reached out to me because, she got it. It was a late night email, and I usually don't, email late at night or anything like that. And it was not from my email address. It was close, but it wasn't. And so she asked me about it. I said, no, I never asked for the broker money to be wired. So yeah, she had gotten hacked basically, and they were monitoring that she had a commission coming.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not just going after buyers funds, they're going
Yeah.
after commission, any money they can feel they could get anywhere. What are the steps? Wait, Ani just had a question. What are the steps in the wire fraud investigation process? That's a good question, because it depends on, I would think, who you're dealing with. I know, like, the first step would be if you've been hacked or there's been, of the wire fraud. Like in this case, the first thing the borrower did was she called her bank. Her bank, the money had already left her bank. So she called Wells Fargo, put Wells Fargo on alert. So put the receiving bank on alert right away. Because they're, it's not like they're using some off the wall Bank of India or anything like that. They're using Wells Fargo, Bank of America, bigger institutions, probably hoping that it won't, just gets lost in the shuffle, which in this case it kind of did. And in this case, our borrower contacted the FBI instantly. So I don't know what they do on their end. I know on our end, our attorney will jump in. Like in this case, it wasn't something that we did. It was the borrower didn't follow our instructions. She had wired money to us before and got all the warnings and everything and got money to us the first time, but for her EMD, but then her closing funds were taken.
Yeah.
So in that case, our attorney did investigation on our end to make sure, number one, there wasn't a breach in our system any way, shape, or form, and that the breach was not in our email. So, I'm not a techie person, so I don't know how IT determines that, but yeah, they did their little computer investigation, decided that it wasn't us. Okay, Ani, you're asking me questions that I don't really have the answer to, because I'm not an investigator, so I'm not quite sure. I know in this case, it took about a month for the buyer to get her money back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Wells Fargo froze the account, and they did confirm that there was money in the account. They wouldn't disclose to us how much. They did confirm with us. I'm sure they don't want to give out more information than they have to, because they don't want to they don't want to open themselves up for any kind of litigation, but they also confirmed with my attorney that our name was not on that account. So even though the wire was sent to Wells Fargo to a supposed Placer account, Placer was not on that account. So we were able to confirm little bits of information, but what the investigation on the back end entailed between the bank and the borrower and the FBI, I'm sure they're not at liberty to tell us all that stuff, but it did take about a month and she did get her money back, thank goodness. And we are moving forward. And luckily she had a seller who was very patient with the process and didn't cancel on her. So we are getting ready to close. So this was a happy story.
Yeah.
But you know, some people aren't so fortunate. And so that's why I just wanted to make sure that, you know, your agents and everybody in the transaction is aware that, you know, this is a serious threat. Do you need to be afraid to wire money? Because I have people now that, you know, they've heard so much about wire fraud. They don't want to wire their money. And it's like, okay, you can wire money safely. You just have to make sure, number one, that you're communicating with who you're wiring the money to. You don't want to just take an email for granted. Call that person, confirm the routing number, confirm they sent you the wire instructions. Again, like ours has the warning notice. We're going to give you these wire instructions for your EMD. We will never send you another set via email unless you specifically ask for it. So if you get another random email with wire instructions, question it. And our wire instructions will never change. So if you wired to City National Bank the first time, but now you're being asked to wire to Wells Fargo, why would a large title company change their bank mid-transaction?
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
we don't just change who we bank with overnight.
Now, what tips would you give for talking to the clients up front? You know, I actually do talk to my clients up front about wiring and, you know, letting them know that, you know, anybody I'm working with, especially on the title escrow side, isn't going to be sending them emails at 10 o'clock at night asking about things.
Exactly.
And, you know, the email addresses aren't going to change and things like that. So what tips would you say are good to for the agents to have that conversation with their client real quick, especially when they're getting a transaction started? Because, you know, we don't know where the client's emails, you know, what the condition of their email protection is. They may have never changed their password. They may have a lot of phishing, you know, things going on in their email and stuff like that. And they could be the ones that are highest at risk, I think.
Yeah, and that's very possible. So I would say, as a real estate agent, when you're dealing with a buyer and they want to wire their EMD, or you're having that discussion with them, just let them know that, you know, hey, escrow is going to be sending you wire instructions to wire your EMD. If it would be a good idea to make sure they're coming from the escrow company and not from a fraudulent email. I mean, they can pick up the phone and call us at any time, and we'd be happy to confirm those wire instructions with them to make sure. But if you look at, I wish I would have saved the fraudulent wire instructions. You can clearly see that it wasn't from us. Had she taken the moment, because I know she had a lot of personal stuff going on at the time, and she was a bit overwhelmed, so she just wasn't paying attention. But had she paid attention, she would have seen that, number one, the fraudulent wire instructions did not have our letterhead. They didn't have the warning page. You know, the bank account had changed. So I would say to advise your buyer, just, you know, if they are wiring funds, just make sure they're confirming that they are coming from the escrow company.
Okay.
Okay.
And I like to put them in direct contact with escrow all the time anyways. I do not get in the middle of that. So
honestly, that is the best practice.
Yeah.
I have some agents who like to be in control of everything, and that's okay. But then when something goes awry, they're also the first person to point fingers, and it's like, okay, well, you never gave us their phone number. You never
Yeah.
gave us their email. You wanted everything to go through you. It is a good idea for escrow to always be in contact with the buyer and the seller, and even to have a phone conversation, because I've had cash deals with cash buyers that I've never met in person if they're not, and they don't need a notary. How do I know that person is really that person
Yeah.
if we're not having some sort of contact with the buyer, some sort of contact with the seller? So the first email my assistants will send out when we open an escrow, we send them a congratulations email. Escrow's been open. Here's your escrow number. Here's your escrow officer. Here's your assistant. Here's the assistant's emails. We have a team email, so we prefer everybody to use our team email because it goes to all three of us. And then it asks for, right off the bat, what is your commission? What is the buyer's contact information? Are you working with a TC? What is the seller's contact information? Are you working with the TC? That information is very important for us because that way we can make contact with the buyer about the EMD. We can make contact with the seller about any loans they may have on the property instead of going through the agent. You don't want to take that on yourself, because if you take that on yourself, then you're taking on that responsibility. So that's what we're here for. So the best thing to do would be to open that line of communication between escrow and the buyer and the seller. Most definitely. And I see we got another question. Do you have a secure portal for clients to use during the transaction to be able to avoid all this fraud? Okay, we have secure email. We get a lot of complaints because people don't like to have to take the time to try to sign in. We do not have a portal for clients. Usually what we do is your sellers are going to sign with a notary. The notaries are bonded. They're approved by us. They have to have a minimum of 2 years experience. They have to carry a hefty amount of E&O insurance. So these notaries that meet with your sellers, and your buyers, they're very highly trained. And I know, we get the question, well, can't we just take it to any, that you're charging us $200 for a notary. Can't we just take it to UPS? The notary at UPS isn't going to know how to fill out our forms. They're not going to know how to answer the seller's questions, or what to do. So we tell everybody the best thing is for them to sit down with our notary and go through the paperwork. And then the notary is responsible for getting the paperwork back to us. If they're local, now that our offices are open, during COVID, we were doing mobile notaries as well outside of the office. But now, if they're local, our offices are back open. So I'm kind of excited about meeting sellers here in the office when they're going through their paperwork so that we can answer any questions. And as far as the buyer, we don't usually, now this is a personal preference. I don't know. I can't speak for every escrow officer, but what we do is we have the buyer, because we don't run SIs on buyers, the statement of information, we don't run their names. So if I have a buyer packet that they need to sign, we normally have them sign it with the loan documents one time with the notary. So we don't have the buyer sign a packet separately up front. We're in Fresno.
So I think this is, obviously it's great information. I love hearing the stories for the sake of education. Obviously stories, I don't want people to get, be victimized from wire fraud, but it is good to hear the stories and how it happened and how it could be prevented. And it's really good that, you guys are able to get that, that buyer's money back to them. Because we've it seems like one of the rare cases, seems like more than often than not, it's just gone,
Right, right.
It's so fast.
The key is to try to catch it before it happens. And yeah, we may not have, a whole lot of technical information about, wire fraud. But the thing is like you said, it's the stories, it's the awareness and making people more cautious of what they're doing. I mean, in this case, this woman was very educated. She was a vice president of some corporation. She was not just your normal mom and pop off the street. Like, she was a very highly educated woman. It just happened to be that she was going through, someone had died. She had a funeral. She was doing all this stuff. There was so much going on in her personal life that she just wasn't paying attention. So the key here is to pay attention. Pay attention to what you're being given. Communicate with your escrow officer. Yes, definitely let the escrow officer handle it. We will send wire instructions to your buyer. You see the warning page that we send them. We're not going to change. They're not going to change. We're not going to send you new ones. This is it. Fraudsters are clever. If you get something different, call us. So, and even they're on the actual wire instructions. And so I don't know how we as an escrow company could be any more clear. Fraud alert, please read. These wire instructions will not change. So, but people get busy and people don't pay attention. So I think, like you said, the reason for these meetings, the reasons for these talks is just awareness. It doesn't mean that I'm any more of an expert than anybody else. Like, I'll be the first one to admit that I call IT 5 times a day because I can't figure out how to do something on my computer. So, that's why I also gave you the protect your email, just a kind of a little guide of what came from my legal department as a suggestion to that lender that was hacked twice in a week. My attorney typed this up, and so I kind of stole it. Now I'm using it for these classes because I thought it was great information, a great reminder for people to change your email passwords. 30 days, great. 90 days, that's fine too. Don't use the same password for your email that you use for your computer, that you use for your credit card, that you use for your bank. I made that mistake too.
It almost could be, if we're doing this stuff on our end, I think that's great. But, again, we don't know, the buyers typically are not in the same role as we are, on a day-to-day thinking about stuff like this. And so it could be good practice to maybe suggest that when you're talking about, you have your little wire fraud spiel, to say, hey, we're starting this transaction. You may consider changing your email password because of wire fraud and things like that. Because if they've been on that same password for the past 5 years, which is very, very possible.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty. I don't change my Gmail password ever. I'm horrible about it.
It's a hassle, it is, but and we're all so busy. Everything is so fast paced these days. I think it's really good. This is one of the times when you need to get serious and, take control of this little situation here and give some really good advice and
there's
slow it down, slow it down, be serious for a minute and take it serious and make sure your clients are taking it serious too.
Well, and nowadays you're probably really excited when your buyer gets an offer accepted nowadays. So I know my poor assistant has been rejected like 5 times in the last week and a half, and she's going way over asking. So, you're pretty excited when your buyer actually gets an offer accepted right now. But yes, slow down. Maybe, as a realtor, there's not much you can do other than practice safe email yourself and changing your passwords and doing what you need to do. But also just have that brief conversation with the buyer, like, hey, escrow is going to reach out to you for the EMD. They might send you the wire instructions. I provided them with your email. You might want to change your password to be on the safe side, to make sure that nobody is trying to access your email. I mean, you don't want to freak them out, but just have that uncomfortable awareness conversation
Yeah.
when you're going into escrow. Absolutely. I mean, we try.
Yeah. That's how we're all trying our best here, but it's something to kind of work into your flow. We all have certain ways of how we handle transactions, and just making sure that this is part of it, that you have that conversation with your client. It literally is going to take just a couple minutes to put them on alert to make sure that they know that this is a real thing that happens, and there's ways to prevent it, that are
Absolutely.
pretty simple,
Absolutely.
actually. Yeah.
Pretty simple. Pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, I got these wire instructions. Can you verify the ABA number and routing number on your account with me? Absolutely. Takes 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I do it with funders all day long. If they're
Yep.
funding a file, they call me to confirm. That's a lot of money they're wiring, and sometimes I deal $1 million transactions. So, they want to make sure they're getting their money to the right place. Why wouldn't the buyer?
Yeah. That's part
And
of their process. We should all have our process too.
yep, it only takes a second to call us and say, hey, I need to verify wire instructions with you. And again, with the sellers, if someone gets upset because escrow's telling them they have to re-sign wire instructions because they want to change the account, just let them know. Same thing I do. I mean, you'd be surprised. And I tell the seller, we're just trying to protect your money. So anybody could call in and say, or anybody could send an email and say, switch it to this account instead of that account. Well, no, you got to come in. We got to make sure you are who you are. That's why our wire instructions are notarized. So we don't want to be responsible for sellers' funds going somewhere else either, because we wire out a lot of money every day.
Yeah, I'm sure. Awesome. Yep. Well, I can let you get back to work. I'm sure you got a busy day ahead.
Always in this market. Yes.
But obviously, we really appreciate your time and your insight and, your knowledge on this, and, sharing your most recent story with, wire fraud. And thankfully that was a happy one, but
yes.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And
thank you.
Oh, actually, yeah. How do we get a hold of you? Well, let's see. Here's a phone number right here. If anybody wants to get a hold of her. Other than that, I'm sure. Go ahead.
You can call the office. As some of you, like Ani knows, I am probably one of the only escrow officers on the planet that give out their cell phone number. So once I start working with a realtor, I give them my cell phone number so they can reach me 24/7. So, okay, I take that back. I don't answer my phone after 10 because I'm probably asleep, but I do answer on the weekends and at night. Like, I'm not an 8 to 5. If you guys have a question, you need an answer right then and there, I have no problem answering your questions. So I've been doing this for 34 years and I love to help you out. I kind of feel like, we're a team. So if you need something, then I should be available to you, and you shouldn't have to wait till Monday at 8 o'clock to get a hold of somebody. If you're standing with a seller and they have a question. Now, if it's about a specific file, I may not have the answer for you, but I am always available. And then Ani had a question for me. Yes, I do anything. I do anything in California. I actually do a lot of construction loans for US Bank, and they're all over California. And I do Wells Fargo's construction loans that are all over California. So we're very good with DocuSign, mobile notaries, and email. So the only thing is I did get a call about Arizona the other day. We are not allowed to cross state lines. So, but if you've got something in California, I can handle it. Awesome. And I've got a nationwide notary service. I've even tracked truckers down on the side of the road to sign before. So wherever you are, we will find you.
We will find you.
We will find you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's hilarious. So awesome. Thanks a lot. And we'll be in touch.
Oh, wait, there's one more question from Steve. Do you charge extra for out-of-town clients?
Ah,
No, actually, our mobile notary services are very good at keeping the rates about the same as a local notary. So like your buyer pays anywhere from 150 to 200 for the notary signing. It is the same with our mobile notaries. They find a notary in that town, wherever your buyer is. I had to track a lady down in a retirement village in Hawaii, and it was still 175. So, no, we do not charge extra for out-of-town clients.
awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again. Maybe in a few months,
Yeah.
we'll do another topic.
Yeah, I told Ani I'm available whenever. Just let me know ahead of time and I'll set it up. Anything
Awesome.
you guys want to talk about.
Awesome. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you. Thank
Okay,
you for
we'll see ya.
having me. Appreciate it. You guys
All
have
right.
a great day. Thanks.
You too. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
Bye.